I have a prediction. I think that the Republican or right-leaning party is going to take over politically. And the reason I think this is not because the right is so much more virtuous than the left, is that the left has gone to such extremes, and then they've set these really hard lines of either you are in or you are out, you know? I think of like this recent statement that the president made that, extreme MAGA supporters are the, biggest threat to American democracy. And like, if you're all in the middle, you're ousted from the left. You can't think outside of the box at all. The fully indoctrinated are accepted and the rest are outcasts. And I think that's going to force a lot of middle running candidates to call themselves Republican. If I was going to run for Congress right now, I'm pretty socially liberal, fiscally conservative. I think a long time ago we could have said, well, is he a Democrat or is he a Republican? But now I much more strongly identify with the Republicans. I'm not saying the Republicans are a perfect party, and I'm not saying that they don't have flaws, but I'm saying I can show up to an event and have an intelligent conversation and we can talk about ideas versus going to the far left where, who am I? I'm a cis, white, masculine male. Let me see where you belong on this hierarchy before we let you speak. And when you speak, are you going to say all the right things? If I say deregulation and they say, oh, and you say, well, regulations were largely written by corporate America. I think we should get rid of these regulations because they're really just feeding into an overly complicated system that only prioritizes the people that have the resources to manage it. And they say, well, but deregulation, that's one of our indoctrinating statements. You can't say that. There's no intelligent conversation whatsoever. Where on the right, I can say, well, I agree with regulation. And they'll, which regulations? Why? You get into these intelligent conversations that involve development of ideas that I just don't get on the left. And I think that a lot of Americans are going to see through this. Is our president going to call for us to lock up the biggest threat to the American democracy, these extreme MAGA supporters? I mean, he should, if he believes that's the biggest threat to America. And is he going to use the military? Because the military is here to defend America against threats, foreign and domestic. He has identified a domestic threat. If that's the way he feels, it is in his obligation as the head of the executive branch of the American government to act and secure the country. So that means these people have to be identified and managed. I mean, this is like outright, and I love his vague language, mega, or what did he say? Extreme MAGA supporters. Who is an extreme MAGA supporter, Mr. President? I want to identify these people so that this threat can be neutralized immediately. Who's with me? Right? And that message alone, I think, is going to push the majority of Americans to the far right, because this is leading into compelled speech, right? I mean, this is absolutely leading to compelled speech. If we're going to identify extreme MAGA supporters, how are we going to identify them? We're going to identify them by the political candidates they donated to, by their beliefs on the history of America. If I believe that the Trump election was stolen, that Biden stole the election from Trump, is that the line? Or do I have to believe that Trump isn't a racist? Or maybe I am a racist because I think Trump isn't a racist. How far are we going to go? And eventually it's going to come down to language. If you have said certain things, and donating to a political campaign is a type of freedom of speech. This statement that this president made, that extreme MAGA supporters are the biggest threat to national security, is absolutely a step towards compelled speech. And I will tell you, I, for one, if they make a law that says, if you say this, you're getting locked up, then I'm going to be saying that immediately. I would like to be a political prisoner to this administration. Well, we'll see, right? I think that, I hope that America moves right, not because of any political briefs or ideology, just because of the actions of the left are so atrocious that this needs to be managed by popular sentiment and in the voting booth.